He's not a U.S. citizen. Deport him. He has a record. They clearly have shown this criminal record that he has. He has, issues, domestic issues, crime issues.
Now, you did talk about the fact that because he's not a citizen of the United States, he doesn't have rights, but there's also a thing called human rights. And by virtue of his humanity and him being here, him contributing to, you can make arguments regarding the type of work he does and all of that. You can make an argument, but there's no argument that he has contributed work and labor to this U.S. economy.
How are you not fired already by that kind of loss? I don't get it. Like $100 million, like 15% of the stock price.
In a capitalistic economy, when you are the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar brand, you better do your market research before you make any decisions. If there's no groundswell of support for this move, you don't change the logo. You don't do it in the name of being progressive.
Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
So as we transition, man, talking about a collision, we're going to talk about Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia. And I know that you have some thoughts about this. And, he's been in the news for a while because there's been controversy about how he's, some people say that he's a criminal. Other people say that he's absolutely innocent. And then when he gets deported to El Salvador in one of the most notorious prisons in the entire world, a judge decides to call him back. And now there's some issues with regard to his case right now. And he's looking at facing deportation to Uganda or Costa Rica.
And a federal judge blocking Kilmar Abrego Garcia's deportation through at least tomorrow and considering extending it even more. Abrego Garcia was mistakenly deported to El Salvador in March and then brought back to face human smuggling charges that were filed after his removal. He's pleaded not guilty, and now he's back in ICE custody, and the Trump administration is threatening to deport him again, this time to Uganda. Homeland Security officials determined to deport him, releasing this video with the caption, "He doesn't belong here. He won't be staying here."
So I'm very, very curious to hear what your thoughts are about this gentleman. Tell me where you stand on this.
I just don't get why it's not going away. And if you've read enough books and you've read enough things, like I always go back and I cite Creature from Jekyll Island because I think it's in that book that he references the major distractions that are always put out there, like alien invasions and things like that, right? And it's like, why is this such a massive distraction? Why are we looking at this? Why are people utilizing this as a powder keg? There are certain, lawmakers that are Democratic lawmakers that are utilizing this and are keep chasing this as some way that this is going to champion some type of cause or make them look good in the public's eyes. And really all it is to me that I look at is it's just a big, fat, giant waste of judicial resources, tax dollars, and pretty much people's lives. Because at this point, realistically, he's not a U.S. citizen. We've already known that. He's not a U.S. citizen. So therefore, he doesn't have a legal visa or a legal way to stay here. There's really no argument. He just gets deported and that's the end of it. But for some reason, we're tying this. And to me, the biggest question is, I don't get it. And yes, you're right. Now it's like, okay, now we're going to deport him to Uganda. Is this guy that bad that not even El Salvador wanted him? Like, I don't understand. Like, he's so bad that El Salvador kicks him out? Or is it like, did he wrongly get sent to El Salvador? Where should he be? I think at this point, it's just like, let the system figure out where he should be. Stop giving it media news coverage. We know he wasn't deported illegally. We know he wasn't violated any rights. He's not a U.S. citizen. He doesn't have rights. At this point, we can say we've given him due process. He's had a lot of time to decide what's going on. Give the guy some money and throw him to a different country of his original origin and let the time be time be time. I don't understand why we keep talking about it. I just don't. To me, what is really going on that we're talking about it? That's the problem I have with it, because it's so cut and dry. To me, it's cut and dry, Len. He's not a U.S. citizen. Deport him. He has a record. They clearly have shown this criminal record that he has. He has, issues, domestic issues, crime issues. Get rid of him. That's the end all see. I don't know why there's a story behind it. And that's where I'm confused. Why are we making it such a big deal? Is there something really sinister going on behind it? Besides the fact that it's just another way for us to create a talking point behind we don't like what the current administration is doing, and look how violent and how unhumane they are.
So when I look at this, I think any story that has legs, there's something more than meets the eye. And I think when you look at some of the context of this particular story, he's married, he has kids, he's been here for quite some time. And the issue that I see that's the main reason why this is happening is because this story is a reflection of a group of people who are fighting for the right to due process under the law. Now, you did talk about the fact that because he's not a citizen of the United States, he doesn't have rights, but there's also a thing called human rights. And by virtue of his humanity and him being here, him contributing to, you can make arguments regarding the type of work he does and all of that. You can make an argument, but there's no argument that he has contributed work and labor to this U.S. economy. And so by virtue of that, by virtue of him being married, by virtue of him having children, he should have a right to due process. And so what the opposing side is saying is that, one, he was illegally deported to Costa Rica, because if he were legally deported to Costa Rica, the judge would not have ordered him back. Not Costa Rica, I'm sorry, El Salvador. He was illegally deported there. And so the judge decided, hey, you need to bring him back. And now the president and the White House is really pressing this issue in particular because, one, President Trump really has a lot of respect for the ways that they imprison people in El Salvador, because crime has really gone down. And so when you talk about a very touchy subject here in the United States, it's crime. And it's very easy for a politician to be tough on crime because of the fact that people want to be safe. That's a universal human need. But here's the issue with him is that Kilmar Abrego Garcia has no due process that has shown beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt, that he is supposed to be deported. So my thing is give that man his day in court. If the courts decide that he's here illegally and they can prove that he has no right to be here as a citizen, then go ahead and deport him. But if not, then there's a problem, because now they're talking about extraditing him by Wednesday to an African country that he has no ties to. And so here's the last point that I'll make is that I have seen very, very close hand how courts do people, unfortunately. And one of the things that they have as their leverage is for people to plea bargain out. So instead of wasting time and money for the court, they give the fear of, hey, if you fight this, even though you may be innocent, but we don't think you're innocent, so we're going to give you this plea bargain. If you fight this, you could face this massive problem that's going to happen. You're going to be locked away for this many years. But if you plead and say you're innocent, then we'll just give you this fraction of what you should be getting. And so most people say, you know what? I'm going to weigh my cards. It's my word against theirs. You know, I'm just going to plea out. And so many people who were innocent end up pleading guilty. Now, I don't have any innocent or guilt to place on this man, but I value his humanity. And regardless of his immigration status, I don't know that for sure. I don't know if he's, there's been people that said that certain people aren't citizens that are. We have a history of that in the United States. So in this case, let the courts decide. Let's take a look at the evidence and then let the truth fall where it may, and then let him suffer the consequences of his guilt or his innocence. That's where I stand on that.
I just think if he doesn't have a citizenship here, which he doesn't, then he should be gone. I mean, that's really all there is to it. He has a criminal background. So I'm in agreement with you.
Allegedly, he has a criminal background. We don't know that.
Okay.
We don't know that.
Okay. Well, he's not on the up and up, right?
Allegedly.
And the problem is he's not on the up and up. It's on record that he has domestic violence. It's on record.
Okay.
There's complaints filed. He has domestic violence. He has strong gang ties.
That's not necessarily true. But
okay,
I won't cut you off. Go ahead, man. Make your point.
And it's okay. And he's not here legally. He does not. He's not a U.S. citizen. Okay, fine. He needs due process. What I think is going on here is that we're using this because that's his lawyers. His legal team is arguing. His legal team's not refuting the fact that he's a criminal. They're not refuting the fact that he's not a citizen. They're not refuting any of that. They're just saying, look, he needs his due process before you deport him. This is a way to drag this on, let him sit in the system, because now what's happening is they're going, okay, we roll the dice. They rolled the dice. This guy rolled the dice. He knew he was waiting for that knock over the shoulder. It finally came, and he rolled the dice. And they were thinking, okay, he's going to get away with it. But now they're using all these court cases and all this criminal background that they're not refuting as, well, he needs due process, like you're saying. They're using what you're saying, Len, is he needs due process because he needs his day's court. He never intended to go have due process. He never wanted any of these court battles to ever come up. He didn't. But now that they are coming up, he's using them as a weapon to stay here in the United States. Because hopefully what ends up happening is Trump doesn't get elected and this never goes anywhere. And he just gets let out to pasture like 90% of everybody who has a record that's getting their due process in America, right? They're just because Cassius bail places like where he's from, right? I mean, you could commit murder and get out on the street now without having to bail, right? Hey, you committed first degree murder? No worries. Letitia James will let you off. No worries. By the way, which is great that she got her hole blown in her boat last week with the whole dismissal of the $500 million crazy lawsuit that she had no right doing. But at any rate, they're using the system to drag it out. And that's exactly what they're doing to get his due process. I think in the end, what's going to happen is he's going to be found guilty. He's going to get deported. And we're all going to look back and look at this one day and go, this is how you game the system. And there's really no way to fix it, because if you do fix it, then you tighten down what makes America, America, which is a place where you can actually come and immigrate, and the country, the government is not on your back, up your, you know what, out the corner or out the other end all the time. You know what I mean? And that's America. But by doing that, it's so easy for people like this to game the system. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a criminal game the system right now and utilize the things that make my life and your life so great. He's using that. And that's where I think as people, as citizens that have families and really contribute to the society, like Len, like you said, he contributed economically to this economy. Len, that's where someone like you should be insulted, where like, I contributed to the economy. You did, not this guy, because I'm sorry, like he's gaming the system that allows good people like you and I to go be productive, to really contribute to the economy and raise good families and raise good humans, you know, children to go on to go procreate and make our areas and communities even better because they get good jobs or become good entrepreneurs and good citizens in their communities. They raise money, they do the right things. We're doing that. And someone like this is coming in and taking advantage of the freedoms that allows us to do that. So that's where I think, by and large, people like you and I can look at this and go, this is a blatant disrespect to someone like you and I.
So
because this guy's getting more due process than you and I ever would on anything we'd ever do in any country, even albeit here in our own country.
So
if we did something criminal, you would be nailed to the frickin' you know what. You'd get your due process for sure. I'm just saying.
So, okay. So if everything you are saying, I think there are a lot of assumptions that you've made. But let's just say that what you're saying is correct. If everything you're saying and alleging to be true is in fact true, I agree with you 100%. I think the problem is the bigger picture is this. In this whole process of sweeping large numbers of people out of the country, there are going to be a good number of them who are going to have their human rights violated and taken out of the country. And they're going to be taken out of the country even as a U.S. citizen. And so I think the greater good is to err towards the side of taking a person's humanity into consideration, because if you do it for one, you set a precedent to just have sweeping processes to take mass hordes of people from the United States out of the country. As we talked about in previous episodes, immigration is sharply down because there is a complete reversal in immigration policy. So from that standpoint, immigration policy has worked because it's curbed the appetite of people to seek refuge here in the United States. And so from that standpoint, it's worked tremendously well. So given the fact that you've stemmed the tide of immigration coming in illegally, I think now let's take the time, unless there's an egregiously obvious situation in which somebody needs to be deported, then give each person their due process. I think by dehumanizing a person's right to a fair trial, and when I say dehumanizing, because like for us, let's just say he were your family member's cousin. You wouldn't respond the same way because he's just the guy in the news to you. But for somebody, he's their father, he's their uncle, he's their cousin. And so I don't have any dog in the fight, but the bigger picture dog that I have in the fight is making sure that as a country, we don't just make sweeping rules that negatively impact innocent people. And this, in fact, if this policy were to allow to, if this situation were allowed to go on unmet with any type of resistance, you have no idea how many people will be taken out that shouldn't be deported. And so that's the main issue that I have with that, man. But we could go back and forth. I want to talk about another issue.
I just have one point.
Go ahead, please.
I just have one point. I just have one point.
Go for it.
I'm tracking with you on that, Len, but I don't. Here's where I think the problem comes from, and because you're saying sweeping, right? Like you're saying you can't have this sweeping policy to remove it. Well, and you're right. We probably talked about this, but whether that's right or wrong is up for discussion. I think what is discussion is that we have a problem, we have to fix it, and I think that that's the most effective way to do it, given the cashless bail laws that are sweeping around all over the country, given the fact that there's just way too many bodies to process and to even know what's going on because we don't have the manpower or the resources or the systems designed for it. I really think this goes back to the blame has to go on, much like blame goes on parents a lot for kids, because a lot of stuff starts in the home. This falls squarely on the laps of those politicians for previous administrations that made sweeping laws to allow people to just flood the country and come in. This blame goes on them because this is just like setting up your kids for failure. The previous administrations left these people high and dry. These people should really be looking at previous administrations, not Donald Trump, not the current administration. They should be looking at them. They have a job to do. That's like getting mad at the guy that has to come and clean up the car accident. Oh, I'm mad at this guy who has to come and clean up this car accident right now because you're not having respect for my mom's car or my mom's blood that spilled on the freeway. No, dude, you should be yelling at the guy who was the wrong way driver. You should be yelling at the administration that let you come in here illegally, didn't follow the due process. So we want due process to come out, but we didn't want due process to come in.
Yeah,
it doesn't work that way.
That's fair.
We should be mad at that administration because it's just like you not telling your kids, hey, look, if you don't get good grades, Emory, Thomas, if you don't get good grades, it doesn't matter. Don't worry, there'll be no repercussions behind that. That's like me saying that. And that's like me saying, oh, it's okay, kids. You can eat whatever you want, drink soda, stay up late, don't go to sleep, don't play. It's the same thing. If I would have allowed that type of behavior as an administrator of my child's life because they're a minor, they don't know better yet, then I'd be setting up for failure. They should be all mad. Now, 50% of it, they should be mad at themselves because they're making decisions now as adults. But 50% go, hey, look, you know what, Mom, Dad, you screwed me up. You gave me a bad environment and you gave me different rules that weren't the rules. You gave me exceptions that aren't evergreen to a system that, generally speaking, does not allow someone to come here illegally and to live here illegally and then have this life for 10 years illegally and then expect there to be no repercussions on it, especially when you're especially when you're shady, right? If someone looked at Kilmar, would you want him and his family to live next door to you in your neighborhood, Len? I probably think not. And if you compare him next to you, you're probably going to go, oh, yeah, he's a little shady compared to Len.
I don't know,
he's a little
man.
shady.
Hey, okay.
So that's all I'm saying, dude.
Bro.
Everyone's going to be mad at Trump because he's the trash guy cleaning up the trash for previous administrations that set these people up for failure.
So, okay. So, one, you and I both have people that are really close to us where if you judge the book by their cover, you'd be like, yeah, until you get to know them, then your opinion changes. So as it relates to...
I agree.
You know, I mean, I'm not saying any names, but you and I know people tatted up, you know, from head to toe, and they're the nicest, you know, financially successful, does well for themselves. We know people like that. So that's the main issue that I have. Like, I don't have any issue with what you said with regard to having loose policies that allow people to flow into the country illegally. I have no issue with that at all. What I do have an issue with is for a policy that takes place that puts innocent people in a position to be done wrong. That's the issue I have. I have no issue with people who are here illegally. I have no issue in terms of them getting deported. I have no issue with people who are committing crimes to have an expedited process to be extradited back to their country. I have no issue with that. What I do have an issue with is a precedent that could be set that potentially allows someone who may fit the visual profile to be swept with other people to be extradited outside of the country. And they're actually a citizen. That's the issue I have. And so
I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's happening, Len. I think what's happening is that, and if it is happening, then that means you're hanging around those people.
It's
because you're hanging around those people. Because you're hanging around those people. So because you're hanging around those people, you're going to have association. So you're guilty by association. As an example, you have seen this as an educator. You're an educator. Someone gets hauled in for disciplinary actions. You're going to have a group of kids. And in those group of kids, you know you're going to have the perp kids. And then you're going to have, every now and then, you're going to have a kid in there and go, you got sucked into this. You're guilty by association. And maybe that's the case. And guess what? If you continue to go down that road, eventually you become that criminal yourself. And eventually you probably have some stuff where you're like, oh, you're not bad, but you're bad, but you're not as bad as these guys. So
that's the slippery slope, Chris. That's the slippery slope. And that's the issue.
So don't hang with them.
No, bro.
And I don't think that's happening in mass scale. That's not happening in mass scale.
Okay, but if he's your family member that it happens to, that's one person too many. So there's got to be systems and processes set up to at least mitigate that. Somebody innocent being extradited. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
And
sure.
when you talk about guilty by association, in this case, like the consequence of somebody getting an extra day of detention is much different than somebody being kicked out of the country.
But he's not a citizen.
Family.
But he's not a U.S. citizen, though.
I'm not talking. Okay, so I've
in this case, Kilmar Abrego is not a U.S. citizen.
Okay. I will give you that. But what I'm saying is that in what's happened, there have been documented facts that people who are in fact U.S. citizens have been extradited from this country. And so when you talk about guilty by association, people don't sit around having conversations about their immigration status necessarily. And even if they did, if neither of them are committing a crime, then the person who's a citizen, regardless of who they spend their time with. Now, if they're doing something wrong and all that, different story. But just being around somebody who's here illegally doesn't make you guilty. And so that's what I'm saying, Chris. That's the guilt. That's the slippery slope. And that if we allow policies and practices for one, then it sets a precedent. And then that's where things start to become, starts to manifest itself in ways that have unintended consequences. That's all I'm saying. I think you and I agree probably 75% on this issue, but it's that 25% that make the big difference. So
I just think he's not a citizen. He doesn't even, it's game over. That's what I'm saying. And if there are U.S. citizens that are being deported accidentally, I shame on all the news channels for not covering their stories and only covering this guy, because this isn't the best guy we should be fighting to keep here.
Okay, I don't know that to be true, but okay, we'll leave it at that. I'm going to be very interested to see how this all unravels. Hopefully he doesn't end up in a different continent, without his day in court.
I'm not laughing about that. I'm just saying, like, it would be bonkers if it's like this guy gets sent to Uganda. It's like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this?
Doesn't that just sound...
They should have left him in his home country. But some liberal judge that is now a hero and is promised some concession from some backdoor deal. We know these things happen because we have the Doge records that say it did, is going to go, I'm a hero. Like, we know they got a gold star and they're happy about it. This judge then giving him back for due process.
Well, the crazy thing is that ending up in Uganda would probably be better than El Salvador in terms of its prison system. So
is it really?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Right. So I'm interested to hear your perspective on this topic, because it never hit my radar until you brought it up. And that's the whole Cracker Barrel situation with the logo.
Home-style cooking brings family together.
Cracker Barrel is known for its comfort, from its food to its country charm. Many finding it a throwback to a simpler time. But this morning, the company making another effort to look forward, unveiling a new logo that's causing a stir for loyal fans of the beloved Southern chain. Overhauling the iconic logo, missing Uncle Herschel, the man in overalls who's been a fixture since the 1970s. And, well, the barrel. In its place, a simpler, more modern design the company says calls back to its 1969 roots. The rebrand is part of a $700 million transformation meant to bring in younger diners. But the change isn't sitting well with some diners.
This is terrible.
What happened to Grandpa?
Or the markets. Shares of Cracker Barrel plunged 12% Thursday, shedding $94 million in market value, one of the company's worst single-day declines in years.
And so I'm very interested to hear your perspective, because I did a little research in preparation for our conversation, and the fact that their market share went down so drastically and their stock value went down by so much is very, very telling. So tell me what your thoughts are about the whole Cracker Barrel changing their logo and all that goes on in your mind about this topic.
First and foremost, what school did the CEO go to? I mean, just common sense to me, Len, is...
Didn't he go to Harvard or Yale? Didn't she go to Harvard or Yale?
It's a she.
Yeah,
it's a she.
Yeah.
It's a she.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, it's almost like, again, like, who's giving her the gold star to continue to champion something that, I'm sorry, girl, you're 4 years late to the party.
Massino, that's her name, Julie Phelps Massino.
It's almost like she's wearing 4 years or 5 years ago's fashion. You got what I'm saying? Like, this is such a super woke move to do, to change this logo. Like, it's dead. Like, you know what? Look, Cracker Barrel is great. I've eaten there many a times. I survived off a Cracker Barrel for like in 2017, 2018, when I was building in Arizona, building my business in Arizona. And I would stop there when I drive cross country to Texas, all those areas. You see Cracker Barrels on the side of the road. And you stop there because you're like, okay, it seems like it's not a fast food place. I could sit, I could kind of have a normal meal. I can have a server. There's other people. It's in a decent area of town. It's not a truck stop or gas station or whatever, you know what I mean? A Pilot or a Love's. And you could kind of feel like a decent human being. If you want to get something from the snack shop or the gift shop, you can. And it was quirky and it was cool. They had the rocking chairs out front, and they had this old looking guy next to a barrel, and
Herschel.
Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, Herschel.
Yes, the uncle. It's the uncle,
Herschel.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's the uncle of the owner or the brother. And it's like, and that was it. And you went in there and you knew it wasn't like, okay, I'm not getting like this top tier fancy restaurant, but you went there and it was welcoming and it was cool. And now we want to rebrand this because we want to take the guy out of there. And it's like, it just looks like every generic restaurant to me. And it's like, what was the issue? I don't understand. How is that making people want to go there anymore? And the reason why it even hit my radar, because I could care less, it's like the Walmart rebrand and all that stuff. what hit it was like $100 million in value and like 200 billion or something in market cap. And I went, dang, I didn't even know Cracker Barrel was even that much big. Holy crap, right? And I'm going, how are you not fired already by that kind of loss? I don't get it. Like $100 million, like 15% of the stock price? Like, how are you not fired? I just don't get it, especially after you see what Budweiser did or whatever it did with
Bud Light.
Bud Light. And then we are doing it in a time where that's not popular anymore. We clearly know that. We know the populace is going to go back against it. And I'm sorry, but guess what? The people that you're trying to market the wokeness to, they don't stop and eat at Cracker Barrel. They don't. They don't stop and eat at Cracker Barrel. And that is purely evident in the stock price because your clientele hates your rebrand. And I'd say I'd strongly suggest, Len, that I'd say that's a direct reflection of the fact that 60 to 70% of their market disagrees with this because 60, 70% of their market doesn't care about the woke crap. And their market that goes to places like this, or the woke people they're trying to talk to, they ain't going to stop in a freaking Cracker Barrel. Just saying, guys.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the thing about every legislative policy is that sword cuts both directions. And so when you have freedom of speech, you have to take the good and the bad that comes with that. There's people in other countries that have governments that limit speech because they try to curtail the freedom of thought. And in a place like the United States, there's going to be a diversity of opinions. You and I have a diversity of opinions on just about every current event that has something to do with center right, center left, far right, far left. You and I are not going to see in every place, but we still give each other the respect in the space to disagree. And I think sometimes what happens is people overreact. And to me, in business, now this is different. In a capitalistic economy, when you are the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar brand, you better do your market research before you make any decisions. If there's no groundswell of support for this move, you don't change the logo. You don't do it in the name of being progressive. I don't like to use the word woke, but I understand what you mean by that. And I think that was a dumb move. The moment market cap starts to swing downward and the moment stock prices start to go down, guess what? We're changing that logo back. Get Uncle Herschel back there and keep it moving, because to your point, most people aren't even thinking about Cracker Barrel like that. That wasn't ever even a conversation. I never heard any protest about taking Uncle Herschel off there because it's offensive. Just like with Uncle Ben on and Aunt Jemima. Like, okay, there are brands that have been around for years and years. Some of it's objectionable. I can make an argument for it, but with Uncle Herschel in particular, come on, leave the guy on there. Keep your market cap so you don't lose your stock price and end up losing your job and your career over some dumb move. So that's my take on it.
Len, think about this for a second. This whole marketing rebrand is costing the company $700 million to rebrand. And because of it, they're still moving forward with it. And they lost $200 million in market value. Spending $700 million to lose $200 million. How is this? That's right. Market down today. Maybe I'll be wrong, but market down today. And we're going to do a study. Someone's going to look at this 5 years from now when brands that don't exist anymore. And they're going to go, where was the defining moment that Cracker Barrel went out of business? And they're going to go, this was one of the starting moments. It was because so many people are health conscious now. And so many people, food is going to change. Like if you don't think the way we eat and the way we receive food is going to change so massive in the next 5 to 10 years, you're not going to go to eat like this in the next 10 to 15 years. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have to get very competitive with the way it does because food is going to be so accessible when supply chain gets automated. I mean, and food supply chain makes the most sense for automatic or for humanoid and all of that stuff because it eliminates a lot of problems. So,
yeah, I think
enough said. I don't even. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think this should be a cautionary tale for every CEO of a large brand to do your research and homework before you make any moves that could cost you millions, tens of millions, and in this case, hundreds of millions of dollars. It may even go over $1 billion before it's all said and done based on what they lose. So, because some people are saying, you know what, I just won't go anymore. And all it takes for a restaurant is to have large numbers of people to opt for something else. And it's so easy for the consumer to do that. There's no friction going to Denny's or IHOP or wherever you want to go instead of a Cracker Barrel. So, but for them, that's long lasting implications, because one person making that decision, that's a lifetime value of a customer called LTV. That's forever lost because of a dumb decision like that. So yeah, it's really sad.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate your time as always, Len. Look, guys, if you were entertained by this conversation, or you have feedback, or you want to comment, go ahead and do so. We're always open to have a conversation with people. And then also, if you like it or you want to see future things to talk about, I mean, for me, I don't care. Len, yeah, I know you don't care. We'll talk about any subject. And again, at the end of the day, we're still friends. We're still coworkers. We're still peers. We're still business partners, and we can have topics like this unemotionally attached to it, so that you can really understand how you feel, and you can really understand the world that's going around you, so that you don't think you're crazy. I mean, that's really the reality behind it. So that being said, Len, it's always a pleasure to see you guys on the next one. Appreciate your time, man.
Always. Take care, man.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.